great to have you, Abhinav, today. And we applied to a bunch of business schools across round one and round two. And we had like interview invites from a bunch of schools, which we'll be speaking about. So the agenda for today is very, very simple. So one, we are going to speak about your application strategy. And next, we are going to speak and discuss about your interview experiences at three business schools, which are ISB, where you have already received an admit from, NYU Stern, and Michigan Ross.
Perfect.
So let's start with ISB. And before we go into the details of your interview, if you could quickly introduce yourself.
Right. So I come from a media and communications background. I have more than 6 years of experience in the Indian media industry. And I'm looking at an MBA right now to go into a more business-facing role, into something like a corporate strategy role in media entertainment. That's one of the paths that I'm looking at, and that's where the need for the MBA came about. And I'm looking at schools in the US, and of course, ISB is also one of the schools that I'm looking at. So that's briefly, short intro about me.
Perfect. So that's great. So before we speak about your interview experiences, I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is when to apply to business schools. So in your case, you're a slightly more experienced candidate. So you have around 6 years of experience, right?
Right.
And so if you can have share any tips for people who are applying to business schools who have relatively more work ex.
Right. So, one of the things to consider. We've had discussions about this, me and you, for a long time about which schools that I should apply to. And initially, I was looking at a lot of European schools because they were 1 year in duration. And that is definitely one thing that older candidates, people who are around 32, 31 years of age, or even 29 for that matter, might want to look at. Now, there's a caveat to that, like we had discussed in detail. The schools that you apply to, be it 1 year or 2 years, it's very important for you to know that they are a good fit for you. So, for example, in my case, as someone who has relevant experience in the media industry and who would consider the media/entertainment industry in the future as well, the European schools were not a very good fit. And though they were 1 year, 1 year in duration, and they suited me because I was an older candidate, but I sort of didn't go ahead with those schools because I was looking for a different kind of an MBA. So 1 year, 2 years is definitely one thing that they want to look at. Another important aspect, at least in my case, was that if I decide to transition into a different industry, I would want to have an internship experience before I recruit for my full-time role. And again, 1 year MBA does not give you the option to do that in most schools, right? And there are schools in which it's up to you to actually do a part-time internship or something, but that can never be as fruitful or as promising as a summer internship, because a summer internship is also one opportunity to impress someone and be recruited full-time. So in my case, again, even though I was an older candidate, I wanted to have that summer internship experience. So again, that was another reason why I opted for 2 year MBAs. Overall, except ISB, of course, which I've gotten admit from. And ISB is a different case altogether because it's in India. You don't need so much, you've already worked here and you have that comfort zone. So, but universities abroad, I think that is another factor that students should keep in mind.
Sure. So, let me quickly summarize one very important point that you have made. So, when I work with older candidates, their mindset is that, hey, let me just apply to 1 year MBA programs. And they largely base it off of the fact that the average work ex at this school is X years, and I fall into that category, so let me do that. Right? But you made an excellent point that, hey, you should also look at your post-MBA exit opportunities and whether or not you need that internship. And accordingly pick 1 year versus 2 year MBA.
And I've had discussions with over, say, about 50 students across business schools in the last 6 months. And this is one question that I've asked almost everyone, that is age a factor? And mostly the answer that I've got is that it's a number, it's in your head. So there are candidates who are much, much older than you who are at business school and they're getting the jobs that they want to. So it's just about you being comfortable with the fact that you will be away from work for 2 years, you might be away from family. So if you're okay with that, then the 2 year has advantages still.
Alright, so Abhinav, thanks for sharing that tip for experienced candidates, and I think what we can do at this stage is that we can move on to speaking about your interview experience at ISB. and then subsequently we'll speak about other schools. All right. Okay, perfect. So, if you could just quickly summarize your interview experience for ISB, how did it begin, and what were your overall impressions about the interview process?
Right. So my ISB interview was in Mumbai, and mine was one of the earliest slots in the morning. And so we of course had one waiting room where there were like 20 other candidates that we were all sitting together and chatting. So basically, for me that was a very good thing, because half an hour I just chatted away with random people and talking about the industry, and it gave me an opportunity to absolutely de-stress myself before the interview. So I really liked that feeling once I was going into the interview. The interview itself was done by a panel of three alumni. One of them was a PGP candidate, as a PGP alumni, and the other was the PGP Max, I believe that is the executive MBA at ISB. And there was a third one who was a bit, he was a PGP alumni, but someone with around 10, 12 years of experience after ISB. So it was pretty relaxed, in the beginning. The first question they asked me was, how was your experience chatting with all these people? How is the atmosphere in the waiting room? And I told them that that's pretty good, and I learned more about 2-3 industries than I would have from a month of research. So it started, so they smiled, and that sort of set the tone for the interview in the sense that it was relaxed. Then there were a lot of questions, the standard questions about why MBA and why ISB. And once that was done, that took about 5 to 10 minutes. A lot of time in my case was spent on what is your industry, what are the things that you're involved with at work, and what are your achievements, what are your failures, what exactly do you do. So getting into the nitty gritties of the industry and the job that I do, and what are the things that you have to take care of, whom do you work with, where do you see yourself going if you don't get an MBA, so stuff like that. So, but more or less the tone was very relaxed throughout the interview.
Got it. So just a few questions on what you said. So one is that were the alums matched, or the people who were interviewing you, were they matched according to your profile, or was it very random?
I won't know whether they. I don't think anyone had media or entertainment experience,
Yeah.
because of also the fact that the questions that they were asking me were very specific to the industry, and they didn't seem to know a lot about it. I don't know if it might be the case that one or two might have relevant experience in the media industry and might have been judging me and still playing, like bluffing me that they don't understand the industry at all. But I don't think so. I don't think I was matched like that.
Sure. So I mean, just for the viewers, a lot of times ISB matches the interviewer according to the person being interviewed, and that happens maybe just on the fly, or they just preconceive it, etc. But they do match people from time to time. So it's always useful to sort of know about your industry before you walk into the interview. So that brings me to my next question: that what kind of industry specific questions were asked to you?
Right. So I work in the TV business in Mumbai. So basically, the question that was asked to me was that, okay, so a little background. In my work here in TV18, the company that I work for, I've been responsible for the launch of a new TV channel from scratch. So their question was that if I am an investor who wants to get into the TV business, and if I give you, if I'm ready to give you money, but I need you to tell me what all you need the money for, and when can you give me returns on that money. So basically, just take a piece of paper and write down what exactly you need the money for. So in terms of, say, in the TV business, there's one aspect which is distribution, placing a channel or relevant TV networks. The second is marketing, letting people know that this channel is coming on air. And then there is content, the actual stuff that you put on the TV, which might interest people. And so those are the three aspects that then I structured the answer into these three aspects, and then I elaborated on them. And then there were a lot of cross questions about it, because, for example, I said that distribution is something that takes a longer time because it's a slow process. Why is it a slow process, and why does it take so much money? Why does it take so much time, and things like that.
Got it. So just for the benefit of our viewers, the case that happened to you, I mean, this is called as business analysis case, and this is usually given to candidates who write their post MBA goals as management consulting. So many a times, when people say that, yeah, they write on their applications that I want to become a management consultant. On management consulting firms, they make you solve such cases. So it is, you might not have written it, but many a times they give you these business cases. So just be prepared for that. So that's the key takeaway, that be prepared for such cases and know about your industry a little. Cool, perfect. So Abhinav, as the next leg of this interview, if you could just quickly explain what broad areas were covered. So far you have spoken about the fact that the career goal was covered, some industry specific questions were asked, why ISB was asked. So any other prominent area that was covered on your interview?
The last bit of my interview was a bit more on the personal side. Okay. So what do you like doing outside work? Why does that interest you? So I said that I do a lot of reading and writing. So what do you like to read? Who's your favorite author? And then when I mentioned that it's Naipaul, then do you think there were one or two questions about Naipaul? Do you think he's very arrogant or something like that? So that was, I think, just to see, at least the sense I got was that was just to see whether the things that I've written on the application essay or the things that I'm talking about, those are genuine. I don't think they would have judged me on the responses on those questions, just to see that I actually have an answer. So that was one aspect which was covered in the last 5 minutes or so in the interview.
Okay. So my next question is that were there any oddball questions that you faced or anything that kind of threw you off?
Actually, the investment question that I was talking about for a new channel, I wouldn't say I was unprepared for it because I sort of adjusted my answer and I gave a decent reply in the end. But I wasn't ready for that kind of question because, like you were saying, someone who wants to get into management consulting or someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, maybe those questions, are asked to those candidates more. But that was the only question which I need to prepare a little for. So one of the tips that you'd given me was to take my time, and I exactly did that. So I basically took about 30 to 40 seconds to note down 3 and 4 basic pointers that I need to talk about. So that's something that was useful because when I finally started talking, I was a lot more prepared for what I wanted to talk about. So it wasn't just off the fly that I was talking there for that question. No other oddball questions at all at ISB.
Okay, perfect. So let me just quickly summarize the interview and and please chip in case I have missed any of the questions. So questions around career goals were asked. Questions around why ISB was asked. Questions around sort of little bit of personal stuff was also asked. And then there was a business case on how did you start a channel, and there was discussions around it. So any other thing besides this, or have we covered all the bases?
I think so. And there's one question on give an example of when you failed and why did you fail and what did you learn from that.
Okay, perfect. So congratulations on getting an admit from ISB first of all, and so I should have said that earlier at the big start of the interview, but better late than never. So any tips that you might have for candidates who are applying to ISB, and so just parting thoughts on ISB.
Right. Okay. One thing that I would definitely recommend someone who's interviewing at ISB is one of the things that I felt that maybe I should have done better was that in the first ISB was my first interview. Also, I need to say that. So it was my first experience of actually interviewing for an MBA school. One of the things that every candidate should do is that within the first 2-3 minutes when you're talking to be it one interviewer or the panel of 2 to 3 interviewers, if you can quickly gauge, what is the, not their mood, but their tone and their entire attitude. So there are some interviewers who are a little stiffer, who are a lot more formal in their questions, and they are expecting very formal replies. And of course, you need to keep smiling, and you even can laugh when you have something humorous to say. but there would be interviews who wouldn't want you to be very casual, and I feel like that's something that I could have done a little better on. Um, so in my following interviews, which we'll probably talk about, that was one of the things that I kept in mind. In the first 2 minutes, I would want to gauge how the interviewer is and whether he would expect me, whether I can be, how open can I be in my responses to those, to his questions or her questions. Of course, that doesn't mean that I become completely casual. It's a peaceful interview, so you have to be professional. But in the sense that how serious or how open you can be about your answers is something that you can gauge in the first 2-3 minutes.
Got it. All right, Abhinav, thank you so much. And at this stage, we can move on to speaking about the next interview. So.